Hey guys, we have a special guest. We showed you what the humidors looked like. We had a case Elegance. We had one from Amazon that were pretty much, they look a lot alike. We cut them, and I used I actually cut them with a handsaw. I had a skill saw that has a battery for my Ryobi, and I just cut all the way around three sides. I had opened the lid, and I was shocked at the difference. I knew there was going to be a little difference because I know how good your humidors work, but we've got the founder of Case Elegance with us, and we want to talk to him about it. So I showed them to you before we jumped on here. Welcome to the show. And what do you think, Michael?
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for having me on, Rob. I think I think I knew exactly what was going to happen because we've been making humidors for a long time. And I told you before we started recording here is that I actually had my my project manager just pick I told her, I don't want to know which one you pick. I don't really care. Just pick a random one off of Amazon that's, as close in price as you can get and as close to looking similar to ours as you can get. And you send it to him. So I still don't know which one that she picked other than I've just saw what you showed me.
And the thing about it is, we talked about it on the show too. They came packaged similarly. They had, the foam inserts on both ends to keep it from bouncing around in the box. But the difference also was theirs came with a Boveda pack for your seasoning, and yours actually comes with a full seasoning product line and a very easy to understand diagram of how to season your humidor in 4 easy steps.
Yeah. We've spent many years now kind of building up what we call the hydro system versus Boveda. We really tried with Boveda. We tried for many long months and even years to try to get Boveda to work properly in climates, because one of the things that we deal with that I think a lot of people don't understand is we're selling humidors all over the world. And so you have, Arizona, you have Nevada, and then you have Florida. If you're in Florida, you don't have to do anything. You can just probably open the lid, put your cigars in, close the lid. Yeah. It's literally 70% humidity as most of the year there. But when you're in Nevada or Arizona or these places, it's really, really difficult to keep your cigars humidified. And so we've had to sort of make it so that it works for all climates. And that's why we have two different types of humidor solution. We have the winter or dry climate solution, or we have sort of the regular, which, works even in Florida, that sort of thing. But one thing we found very quickly is that if you don't really understand manufacturing, and a lot of these guys, they're either Chinese sellers or they're maybe guys that don't really love what they're doing. We love humidors, we understand humidity, we understand cigars. And if you go and tell your manufacturer in Asia, hey, make me a humidor, and you don't understand what's going on in their minds, right? They think you want them to make it at the cheapest price possible. So they're going to start substituting materials on you. They're going to start that, I told you before, most people don't really understand that Spanish cedar is actually a form of mahogany. And there's other forms of mahogany that you can swap that for if you're a manufacturer to try to, save cost. And so a lot of these guys, what they'll do is they'll go and try to get, they'll maybe send quotes out for 4 or 5 manufacturers in Asia, and they'll pick the cheapest one. They'll get samples or whatever, and they'll pick the cheapest one. And it looks the same. If you, like you said, you didn't know that it didn't have any cedar until you cut it in half.
Right.
And then you were like, whoa, there it is.
And not that it didn't have much cedar, it didn't have any cedar.
Yeah.
It's like they printed what cedar looks like on the side of the wall.
Yeah. It's truly a paper thin layer. I forget the millimeters, but it's like 0.25. It's very small amount of paper thin veneer that they put on it. And we started, when we started building, this same thing happened to us, right? This is the normal default Chinese manufacturing is, hey, this is what everyone does. And so they do it. And so we started looking at this going cutting it apart and realizing what's going on and not getting the results we want because we're using this thing. We want to be able to store our cigars. We want all this thing. So once we figured that out, we said, well, why don't we just make a big fat chunk of cedar walls like you would think that's how it's built. And so we did, and the results are phenomenal. I mean, it's way easier to humidify, stay seasoned longer. It makes your cigars smell amazing.
You're able to actually hold in the humidity. I mean, because
Yeah,
without any actual wood, you're basically putting whatever humidification straight into the cigars, and that's it. And then once that starts drying out, there's no more residual humidity, from what I can tell.
yeah. It just means you have to you're constantly dealing with, it's drying out, it's drying out, it's drying out. Versus the cedar helps keep it a lot more even. It's funny, when we launched that humidor there, you cut in half. One of the first returns we got, a guy called me. Got all the way to me, got cut through customer service, and it got all the way up to me because my customer service rep didn't know how to handle it. The guy was complaining because the cedar smell was too strong. And he's like, I don't want to put my cigars in here. The cedar is just too strong. And I just laughed. I literally was laughing with him on the phone. I'm like, man, I've worked my entire career to make that possible for you, and you literally are complaining about it. I don't know how to help you, man. Like, it's a good thing. You paid extra for that,
Right. And I mean, they wrap cigars in cedar.
Yeah, it's silly. Cedar will actually keep bugs out as well. That's another thing, is that it's not just for, there's actually little mites or whatever that get in your cigars.
Yeah, cigar beetles.
Yeah, cedar. Yeah, cedar will keep it out. So it's just, overall, the more cedar you have, the better, more even your cigars are going to be, the easier it's going to be to maintain, the better time you're going to have. And as you can see, I would say you're going to be hard pressed to find somebody on the market who uses as much cedar as us, until you get into like a super high end, LE Blue, or maybe like $300-400 price point humidors, where you're going to have to, that's where you might find somebody that's using just as much, not even probably more. So it's really interesting.
Yeah. And I know, my first humidor, I bought a really cool looking, it looked like a wooden treasure chest. It had a dome glass top, and man, it didn't work at all. It looked cool, but it did not work at all. I was not happy with that purchase.
Yeah, no. And that's a lot of these guys especially the Chinese suppliers, they usually, they're not very good with the design. But if they are good with the design, then they don't smoke cigars in China very much. And so they don't really understand. And I think they tend to think that we want cheaper products. And so they're going to build them for cheap. Like when we first went on Amazon, like the first page was covered in humidors that were like $40. And it was just like $40 humidors was kind of the standard, the norm. And we've kind of basically changed the entire category to where our, kind of minimum humidor is $99. And now you go on there and there's a ton of humidors in that $99 range on the first page, because we went in and said, no, I don't think consumers want that. I don't think consumers want a cheap product. To give you like our humidors cost $40 in that range, like the cost of them. So like we couldn't sell it for 40, right? And so for them to make, I know what it takes for them to make. That means they're actually spending between $5 and $10 to build it. If you're buying a $40 humidor,
but the bad thing is they're still spending that same amount of money. They just raised their prices so that it looks like they're all the what you are.
You're absolutely right. That's true. They're benefiting off of we're actually improved the quality, and they didn't. I would say their design is improved because they started to copy our design.
Like this one that we cut open, look just like yours, different finish, but the design was literally the same. They were almost identical in size, and they both had glass tops. The top opens. They have, where you put your cigars, and then they have a tray for your accessories down in the bottom. The main difference is there was no cedar in this one. There was no wood.
We actually have a bunch of different patents. One of them is a design patent, and I don't know if it's on that model or not. But I think we've knocked off probably about 50 guys off of Amazon who basically just totally copy the design. I mean, just straight 100% copy. And so we've been pretty successful with that. These guys, I don't know, maybe Noelle got them before we got them knocked off or something. But yeah, it's an interesting thing that happens when you do something right and you do something good for the consumer. Everyone tries to mimic you, but it's like any kind of knockoff, right? You go and buy a Gucci bag that's a knockoff, you know what you're getting into, right? It's not going to be the quality. The stitching is going to be off. The logo is going to fall off after a month. I mean, it's like, or a fake Rolex or something. Like you know what you're getting when you buy a fake.
Right, but when you go on Amazon and there's a product that looks just like yours for say $10 cheaper, you don't know that you're getting a knockoff.
I think you might, because ours has 4,500 reviews and theirs might have a couple hundred, and and you can see the latest reviews starting to tail off of, doesn't hold humidity and those kinds of things. And so if you're a savvy enough shopper, you should be able to tell. Plus Amazon puts, the Amazon's choice tag on ours, bestseller, those kinds of things. So there's hints in there that if you are a savvy consumer, but if you're just very price sensitive and you're like, well, it looks the same, boom. And I think a lot of guys, especially new to cigar smoking, they don't really understand. So we've tried to put out a bunch of content, of course, like this, podcasts. We've got a bunch of videos. We've got all kinds of stuff, blogs on our website that's just trying to educate that first-time consumer, what's important when you go to look and buy a humidor.
Yeah, I mean, because a lot of times it is the first time you buy one, you have no idea what you're doing. You know what I mean? So then you're basically going on two things. Usually is one, you're looking at what's it look like, and then two, how much does it cost,
and how many cigars does it store?
Right. I mean, that's the well, and I'll tell you this, before I bought my first humidor, a good friend of mine that had been smoking cigars for a while was like, don't buy a humidor that holds 25. Don't buy one that's going to hold 50. You need to start out right out of the gate with 100 to 150, because you're going to stack up cigars way faster than you think you will. And that was the best advice that someone gave me as a new buyer, because I bought one that would hold 100, and probably within, 6 weeks, it was full.
Yeah, no, that's 100% true. And I think the other thing that's true is that typically when you go to that level, the quality actually gets better. And I think that goes to even in our humidors, because it's just natural. The walls get thicker, and so it holds humidity better. You have more room for cedar in a bigger box, and so you're going to have just naturally more cedar. There's also, you have more margin in there, so you can do more things with, features and accessories and all these kinds of things that happen. So if the price difference isn't that much. I mean, I think you can get it goes from basically 100 to sort of 200 in our catalog to go from that jump of like 25 to 50 to 50 to 100 or whatever. I would also say that people underestimate how many cigars they're going to get, and then they also overestimate how many cigars a humidor can actually hold. And I think that's one thing that happens is somebody will buy 100 cigar humidor and then try to pack it with 100 cigars and then go, well, some of these ones on top are dry. You're like, yeah, because you've filled it up too much.
Humidification's not working its way through 8 layers.
Yeah, it's tough.
Cigars.
Yeah, I think the rule of thumb is whatever it says it holds. And this is, I think, on our industry of not marketing this well enough, because it's really hard to explain this to somebody. But whatever it holds, maybe half of that is probably a good rule of thumb, right? So if it's 100 cigar humidor, and we're talking about long term, right? If you just, okay, well, I got 100 for a couple of weeks or something, no big deal. But if you're talking about I'm going to store 100 all the time, then you probably need, a bigger humidor than just storing 100.
Yeah, and for me, like if a humidor says it holds 100, I easily put 80, maybe 90 cigars in there, but my stock rotates very quickly.
There you go. Yeah,
day.
That's true. No, and that's true. I think that's another thing. If you talk about advanced, humidification, advanced humidor 101, is I think most people don't rotate enough. And our system, that's kind of one of the complaints that we get about our system is you've got to take out all the cigars and to get, because it's the tray is at the bottom, the humidification tray, because humidification, rises. And so you have to do that. And it's kind of on purpose because you need to rotate your cigars, and it's sort of a forced rotation because you take them out, then you refill the humidification, and then when you put them back, you sort of have this automatic rotation that happens, and that's just one reason that we do that.
And one of the things that I didn't even know was before we even cut open the humidors, I told you I wanted to do that, and you were like, "Yeah, go for it. Let's see what happens." Well, you told me there. I was like, because I would imagine that like all these humidors, maybe they have a lot of MFD. And you told me that MFD is almost a necessity in humidors because it doesn't expand and contract like real wood.
Yeah, I think it's called MDF. You had in my mind, I was like MFD. Yeah, MDF.
I always use MF together. I don't know why.
That's funny. Yeah. So you pretty much have to make a humidor out the walls and everything out of MDF because and there's multiple grades of MDF, just like everything else in this world. You can get really crappy MDF that will suck up the water and explode apart. You can get really waterproof MDF. I mean, there's all kinds of different MDFs. And there's different ways to make MDF also. I mean, our MDF, it's, you take basically sawdust and kind of compact it into that, but MDF can be molded and it also will hold its form. That cedar, even in our box, and one of the reasons why it's harder to use cedar is because as it gets humidified, it'll start to warp and, it won't stay straight. So if you try to make a humidor, you have to make it out of a really, really hard wood. But even then, the joints and everything will not. So, you'll go to close the lid and it won't be perfect. It'll be like off. It's just really, really, really challenging to make a product fully 100% out of wood. Not to mention the price point would be absolutely astronomical. So it just, but I don't believe, I think we talked to LE Blue about, I don't think they make theirs out of that. They're like $2,000 humidors. I don't think they make theirs out of fully wood. I think they do the similar thing to what we do, right? They have the MDF as the core and then they wrap it in cedar so that if the cedar warps, it's not affecting the integrity of the box.
Gotcha. Well, and as a brand new cigar smoker, I remember back in the day when I thought to myself, I'm just going to make my own. And, in my mind, I'm thinking I'm going to make it completely out of Spanish cedar. I don't know that, it warps and swells and all that. But then when I started reading up on it and checking out prices, it was like, holy crap, it's going to cost me a fortune to make a cigar box out of all cedar.
Well, and not only that, but you've seen cedar roofs where, they start to curl after a while.
Right.
So it's the same thing. So your box would be great when you first built it. And then 6 months later or something, it would just be like a mangled mess. And you're going, what did happen?
Well, if you knew my woodworking skills, that was a pipe dream from the very start.
Yeah. I think I told you about this. We've of course loved to make humidors in the USA. That's our dream. So we've continually talked to manufacturers here in the US, and it's like none of them with COVID, it's been crazy, but I think we contracted with 7 at one time, paid them all, and got no samples. None were even delivered a sample.
Really?
Gave them the design. Yeah, it's really, and these guys have made humidors before. They got them on their website. Hey, we make humidors, and it's like, it's really hard. And then you also think about the scale of it. I mean, the amount of humidors we sell is like, we have a city block in Asia, and I think they've just added another building to this that literally is just making humidors.
Wow.
All the time. So like the scale of it is, even if we could manufacture in the US, we're talking about they would make us a few hundred boxes over a 3-month period or something, which would not even come close to the demand that's out there for these.
Wow. So, and I mean, like when you look at the cost difference of doing it there versus doing it here, was it like a tremendous amount of cost that goes into doing it here versus, I mean, because you still pay shipping.
Yeah, so to give you like our cost would be what we sell it for. So if we sell it to you for 300, that would be our cost. Um, and there was kind of a floor too. Like the cheapest one they would make was in that like 150 to 200. So the bottom cost, which means, in reality, we would have to sell that for probably double or triple, somewhere in that range of what we paid for it. So you're talking about, a $500-$600 humidor that's just a normal humidor.
Wow.
And again, you would be only able to have a very small quantity of those. So, which is probably all you need at that price point, honestly.
Right. True. So let me ask you this though, like, how's your feedback from the customers as far as the guys using your humidors? I mean, are most of your consumers like your everyday cigar smokers? Are they your, once a week guy? I mean, like, what kind of feedback do you get from your consumer, and what level of understanding of humidification do they have?
I would say it's either they have an incorrect understanding of humidification, that maybe they are an advanced smoker, but they still don't understand, everything, or they are a new smoker. And it's really interesting because I thought the people that bought the 100 cigar boxes would have a better understanding. And I think most cigar smokers in general just go, hey, number needs to be between 65 and 72. And that's pretty much all they know about humidification.
And I mean, to be fair though, I don't know that much about humidification, and I've been smoking cigars for 10 years. I smoke way more than your average cigar smoker, and that's exactly what I know. I need it between 65 and 72.
Yeah. And I think even that is a little bit of a misnomer, because I think I always ask people, every time I do these kind of interviews and talk to every customer I talk to, I'm trying to understand what their preference is in terms of humidity. And I think what most people think is they actually want it to be 70 to 72. But when I talk to people that really know what they're talking about, I think what most people actually prefer to smoke is more in that 65 to 67 range of humidity.
And I would agree with that, because I am not a happy smoker whenever I'm smoking something that's been stored at 72 to 74, because now my cigar is kind of mushy. It's kind of damp. It doesn't burn as well. It tends to tunnel burn. And so, I don't want it that high. And I would also assume that it's like you said earlier, it depends on where you live.
Yeah. I think the other thing that people have to realize is people think humidity is like this precise thing that's in their box. So if they read that gauge on their front and it says it's 67, that like every single cigar in their humidor is going to be 67. And like, that's just not true. There's a ton of factors that go into that. One is, if you just put them in and they haven't been sitting there a month in the box, they're obviously not going to be the same humidity as everything else around it. That's an easy one.
Let me ask you that real quick. Like, how long does it take to get your cigar? I mean, you go to the cigar shop and let's just say it's, 68%. Then you have them in your car and your travel humidor. They're losing humidity already, especially if you're in West Texas like I am. And then you put them in the humidor. How long do they need to sit in there resting until they come up to where they need to be, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge variable question. I mean, if you put in 25 at a time, right, it's going to take longer to get those 25 to where they need to be. If you're just putting one stick in there, it's going to be a lot quicker of a thing.
And I guess how also matters in there too.
Exactly. If you've got, actually, and that's another point to this advanced talk, is that I think the other thing people will do that really is frustrating is they'll put 3 cigars in a big old humidor, or even a smaller humidor, and they'll say, well, why isn't my humidor holding humidity? And you're like, well, how many cigars do you have in there? And they're like, 3. And you're like, well, cigars is a huge part of maintaining humidity. And if you don't have enough cigars in there to maintain, it's going to be much, much more difficult to maintain that humidity. So there's sort of like a minimum.
Wood is doing the work.
And it's just, there's nothing to hold it in there. That the cigars will actually hold the humidity. It helps keep it even. And that's another point, is early on, when you just start seasoning a humidor, the humidity throughout the box is incredibly uneven. I mean, we take measurements all over the box in really sophisticated ways, and there might be a 10% difference from like the top of the box to the bottom of the box, or one side of the box to the other box, because the cedar hasn't had a chance to, get all the moisture yet, because you don't have any cigars in there yet. There's just a ton of stuff that just takes a good couple of months before that entire box becomes more even. And even then, if your humidity source is at the bottom, the cigars on the top are going to be a few points different than on the bottom. And I think this is actually a feature, because for me, I like to smoke them a little drier. So I'll put the ones on the bottom that I know I'm not going to smoke readily, and then I'll have the ones on the top that I know I'm going to smoke soon, and it's perfect. So it's just sort of a natural function of how all this works.
Yeah, see, that's what I love about Case Elegance is you guys make it easy, okay? And what I love about that is I don't want to be an expert on humidification, to be honest with you. That's your job,
Yep.
I just want to be able to smoke cigars and they'll be ready for me to smoke.
Yep. And we try to make it as easy as possible. I mean, unfortunately, there's a ton of variables. There's a ton of variables. And I think knowledge is the biggest thing. And one of the things that we talked about that I think a lot of people make the mistake on, especially in Arizona and even in Texas there, is temperature. I think people underestimate the amount of variability temperature can have on how your cigars are performing and how they're being stored. For instance,
you have your humidor sitting out in your garage that doesn't have air conditioning. And in Texas, it's not unusual for the garage to be 95 degrees.
Yeah. Well, let me turn my light on here. And which would completely ruin your cigar. So what happens when you, even at like, I don't want to say a specific number, let's call it 74 degrees, 75 degrees, 76 degrees. As you start to get in those ranges, the tobacco opens up, and it actually will allow more humidity to get inside your cigar than so for instance, you could be at perfectly 70% humidity, but if you're at 75, 76 degrees, your cigars could be too moist. More than, and you're like, why? It's, or even 66 or 67% humidity. Like, why are these so moist? And it's probably because your temperature is too high. And that's why on our humidors, you've got the little temperature gauge in the upper right-hand corner. So you can kind of monitor that. And it's very often that we get calls from Arizona in these places, and you ask them, one of the questions you ask them is, hey, send me a picture of your humidity gauge, and they send it to you, and it's like 70% with 78-degree temperatures. And you say, hey, where do you live? Oh, I live in Arizona. And I'm like, well, can you put this in a room that's not going to be 78 degrees? And a lot of times what they say is, no, I don't have a room that's not 78 degrees. It's 115 outside. Wow. And you're like, oh my God, I don't know how to help you. But yeah, I mean, it's much harder to keep your cigars correct when you have those humidity. And then at night, right, it'll drop down because it's a desert, and so it might drop down below 50 or something, and then you have the opposite happen, which is the tobacco closes up and they don't, and then you have this like expand contract, and the cigars just kind of get nasty. So it's really important to try to put the humidor in a place that's going to be a fairly consistent temperature, and not have swings.
So what I'm hearing is, if you love cigars, you smoke a lot of cigars, don't move to Arizona.
Arizona, Nevada, these are places we actually sell a ton of humidors there, because all the other guys don't know how to, they don't work. But yeah, they're very difficult places to keep smokes stored. I mean, I would say that if you're a super avid cigar smoker and you're going to keep a ton of cigars there, it's going to be harder, because you're going to have to really figure that out, and do things that maybe, you wouldn't have to do before. I mean, just the evaporation rate in Nevada is insane. I mean, I remember being at the shows, conferences, they hand you a cigar, and if you left it out for the day, it's like dry at the end of the day kind of thing. Crazy.
Yeah, it was actually that way in Vegas. During the PPE, I had some cigars that I kept in my pocket. I had some in a backpack, and they dried out in one day.
That's crazy. And not that you couldn't recover those if you really, tried, but it's just something
I just smoked them.
Yeah, I know that would help. It's those guys there are pretty crazy. They smoke a lot. They're like you. They smoke a lot of cigars, and they hand you a cigar. They want you to light it up right then. They're like, here you go, smoke it right now.
Oh, right. That's how we are. It's like, I'm giving you a cigar, light it up.
Yeah, I think the other thing, if I had to keep going with the advanced humidification, is just air movement. Right, I've seen this happen where somebody puts it in a room that doesn't have quite the air exchange that you would want. And something as simple as like putting a small fan in the room just helps, because the only way that evaporation really occurs, or at least speeds it up, is by getting enough air movement in the room. We're actually working on a very small fan to put into all the humidors, so you'd be able to have it, because that's the number one thing that would keep the humidity even, keep everything good. And it would actually, the way ours is going to work, it's going to be software driven. So it'll detect when your humidity falls and it'll start to turn on. It'll only be on as long as it's needed, those kinds of things to try to get kind of perfect, even humidity.
Wow. So, but even like that just blows my mind, thinking that I need airflow in the room, because the cigars are in a box. They're not out
Sure.
in the air. So you're saying that even if there's no airflow being moved around in the room, it affects it.
It will. Yeah. No, we've definitely tested a lot and seen that it will, even just a small amount of airflow in the room, because it's a box, right? It's not a Tupperware container that's sealed from the air. There's air movement exchange. That's why over time, if you just put humidity in the box, right, the box is going to leak humidity. Everybody's like, oh, your box is leaking humidity. I'm like, yeah, it's a wooden box. It leaks humidity, right? We smoke cigars out of a wooden box, not because it's the best thing to store humidity necessarily. We do it because it's cool. Right. We do it because we want to go and we want to get it out of this box. We want it to smell awesome. We want we don't want to go and open a Tupperware container and hand our buddy a cigar. Like, that's just not very cool.
I know guys that use, they're not Tupperware containers, but they're some kind of airtight box.
Yeah. Yeah.
How does that do in comparison? Because there's no airflow in one of those.
There's no airflow, but you can, once you get to that perfect humidity, you can trap it in there and it's solid, but you still need to be opening that up, getting fresh air in there, moving it around, which I'm sure they do, right? It's rotation. I don't like that. We're working on one humidor that's pretty cool. It's a glass jar. It's called the Canador, and it's
seen the prototype of that one.
Yeah. And you pull it out
inside, and yeah, that is awesome.
It literally, it's going to come with a dropper of solution, so that you pull out the thing and you just put a couple of drops of solution in there, and it lasts for like a month without having to need it. That's the difference, right, between a completely sealed environment versus a wooden box, where you're going to just get, you might need a lot more. You don't need just a dropper in a wooden box. You're going to need to fill up a whole tray, which is what we're doing. So it's a different thing. And but like I said, I think the reason we use boxes is more about the experience. Presentation, it's experience. Like, smoking a cigar is like an experiential thing, right? You go to the box, you open it up, you pull out your cigar, you take off the wrapper. Like, it's like a whole thing. And that's what it's all about. And if your thing is, I want to go to my, cooler and open up the cooler, and inside the cooler, I can dig out my cigar. If that's your thing and you're comfortable with that, fine.
Well, see, the one friend I know that he has several of these airtight boxes. He also has several hundred cigars. These are not cigars that he's smoking every day. You know what I mean? He puts them in there, puts them away, and he might not smoke those cigars for months, years. And so,
but he's probably got a humidor, I would guess, as well. That
actually has one of your humidors.
So he's got one he puts his smokes into. Sure. Yeah. And both of them. And frankly, that's probably easier to maintain, right? As a completely airtight sealed box is going to be easier to maintain than a wooden.
He doesn't want to try to maintain the humidity on, 10 humidors.
Of course. Yeah.
So he's got one that he keeps the cigars rotating in and out that he smokes all the time. But the ones that he's just, the guy's almost like a collector. You know what I mean? He has the limited editions that you're not going to find anywhere. And so that's where he keeps them because he says the humidity just stays perfect in there and he doesn't have to jack with it.
Yep. And the Boveda is great for that type of example, right? If you have a completely sealed thing, a Boveda works absolutely amazingly. It's just when you get into this wooden humidor realm, because you've seen the difference in cedar, right, between our box and the other box. Imagine trying to tell people like what percent Boveda to use in that other box and how many grams to use and all the different variables. And then it's like, okay, well, it also depends on where you live, and it also depends on the temperature, and it also depends on 18 other variables, how many cigars you're storing. So it got to the point for us is like it was impossible for us to calculate which Boveda would actually work, because while they can include a Boveda, it's not going to work, right? You're going to put your cigars in there, and it's likely they'll never work. Not right. I mean, we've tested every humidor on the market. We put Boveda. I don't understand, how they get away with this, because it's not that easy.
Well, I think the only way they're getting away with it is that people don't know, and we talked about it on the show. The hygrometer that you guys include, like y'all's just spot on. You test them. You pay a lot of money for those particular hygrometers. And
yeah, actually the sensor comes out of Europe.
And so that's the other test that we're going to do. We haven't done that yet, but earlier on the show, I mentioned that we're going to take, because I took both of them out, and I'm going to put both of them side by side in my humidor next to my hygrometer and see where they show, because I know the analog that came in the humidor that I bought, it always said 70.
No matter what, they just pinned it to 70.
70 yeah. When I bought it, it said 70 before and after I did the whole seasoning.
I think this is maybe 6 years ago when we first launched a humidor, and we had an analog hygrometer. Our manufacturer asked us, "Hey, do you want us to put it at 70?" And we're like, "What?" And they said, "Yeah, that's what we do a lot of times." And I'm like, "No, what are you talking about?" And so it's very common is that they'll adjust it to where it's kind of stays there. And it's the hygrometer is a whole different beast, right? Because especially if they're doing what we're doing, which is they're putting that hygrometer in the front. When we first started doing that, the hygrometers weren't sealed properly. And so you could literally blow on the front of the hygrometer and it would increase the humidity 20% or something.
Wow.
So
from your breath.
Exactly. So the wind was getting in between all the glass, or it's not glass, like an LCD screen, and in between all of that. So we just completely redid the whole thing. Silicone seals throughout the thing. We put a silicone seal on the back. We basically locked it in so that even though we're cutting a hole in the front of the box and we're slapping an electronic component in there, that the air exchange from that hole is as minimal as possible, while at the same time you can still pop the hygrometer out, replace the battery, calibrate it, get a new one if it breaks. So we needed that sort of flexibility, but also keeping it sealed.
What's the lifespan on the battery? Because I've had the Octador for well over a year and I've never had an issue. But what lifespan?
About a year.
Really?
Yeah, it's about a year, and that's why when you go on our website, you need solution. Really, you should be changing like the gel. I mean, you live in the Texas, so I'm not sure your seasonality there, but like for us, we have. It was literally people were out mowing their lawn yesterday, and it snowed this morning. There's an inch of snow on the ground. It's the weirdest time in Indiana right now, but I change my crystals out twice a year. So you just dump the tray out and brand new crystals. And then I might change when I do that, what type of humidor solution, so if we're going into winter, I'll use the winter solution. If we're going into summer, I'll use the summer solution. But we sell this thing called the Claro membership. And basically it includes everything you need for a whole year. Includes 2 gel refills, like to swap out the gels, includes 4 bottles of solution, 2 winter and 2 summer, or you can get the, if you live in a dry climate, we have a dry climate version that just has all 4 of the winter dry climate solution. And then it also includes a CR2032 battery. So you don't have to worry about when the battery dies, just pop it in, but it lasts about a year. It's a battery. So
what makes your solution that comes with the humidors different than what I go buy on Amazon? Because there's a million different solutions, crystals, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. So one, it's been tested, right? I mean, we test it with our humidors to make sure that it works as it's expected. So you're getting the experience you're supposed to. But really, a humidor solution is pretty simple. It's two different ingredients. It's propylene glycol and distilled water. And the winter dry climate mix, of course, has a higher content of distilled water than propylene glycol. And then as you go into the regular mix, you're going to have more propylene glycol, not necessarily more than distilled water, but just the balance is you're going to have more propylene glycol, because propylene glycol stops evaporating at 70%. That's what it says. And I don't really understand. I mean, it might be 70% right above the tray or wherever the 70% is. So it causes the humidity to be a bit lower. Propylene glycol also prevents mold growth. So when if you just use water on those crystals, you're going to have all kinds of mold problems. So we make sure we put some of the propylene glycol in there to eliminate that. But I don't like disclosing the percentages of what we're doing, but certainly when you're buying ours, you're getting a tested propylene glycol to distilled water percentage mix that's going to get you the result that you want. The crystals are another thing that we've spent 5 years now, because crystals like that, they start off like you can barely see them, and it's like a chia pet. They actually take up to like 400 times their original size or something, and that's how then they slowly evaporate it. So what it allows you to do is allows you to store a lot more water in that tray than if you just had the tray and no water, and it's a little bit slower evaporating, so it allows you to sort of mess with that.
Okay. Well, that's interesting because, I mean, trust me, I've been through all different types, and I don't know what makes one better than the other. So just knowing that you guys have tested it to make it work or find out what works best, I don't want to worry about it.
Yeah. And frankly, it's hard for us to even tell. Like if you there's a blue bottle on Amazon that sits bigger, and it's a little bit cheaper, and we've bought it. And it's like, for us, I think it has I think it's closer to our winter solution, but they don't tell you on the bottle what percent propylene glycol and what percent distilled water. So you don't really know what you're getting. If they did, it'd be a lot easier to, figure out which one is comparable. But I think that blue one is a little bit closer to our winter solution, but not quite. And so, but it's just hard to know. You just got to pour it in there and you go, well, I don't know
what the crapshoot.
Yeah, I don't know. And I don't know. They might change it. They could change it every month and you just wouldn't know.
And then the other thing is, I mean, because I'm buying just a blue bottle, they don't know where I live. So they don't know the environment here. If I live in Florida and I'm using theirs, and then I move to Texas, it's like using two different completely solutions.
Yeah, my guess is that blue bottle for Florida is probably going to be too much. You're going to struggle with too high of humidity. And then for Nevada, you might be a little bit too low or right on the money. It might work better, but it's really hard. That's why we had to make two versions, because that's what we realized is that, hey, like if you live in, or even if it's a different season in Indiana, it's like once we figured that out, it was huge. It was like, wow, like this is, and it also, you can actually mix them together. So if you get in this weird season where you're not quite, if you say, for instance, you're in the summer, but you go through a cold spell, you live in Wyoming or something, you could just add the winter solution to the existing mix that you have. And it's just going to boost humidity. Like it's like a superpower. It's like goes from 64 to 68, boom, like that overnight. So it's kind of like gives you a kit there to do whatever you want with.
Well, let me ask you this, Michael. Like, when is it too low? At what humidity do you say, all right, that's not going to work? You know what I mean? Like everybody says 65 to 72, but I mean, are you good at 64?
I typically will watch mine, and as it gets 64, I will usually add a little bit. depending on how long it's been at 65, right? If it just went to 65 and I know it's kind of been at 65 to 67, I probably won't touch it. If it's been at 65 for a month, because here's the other thing is you're not watching that humidity all the time, and there's fluctuations. So as your temperature drops at night, your humidity is going to, change and likely drop. And so it could be dropping a little from 64 to 62 at night, and you're not even really realizing it because you're not, you haven't seen it. And so, it's probably better to start looking at it about 65, 64. Again, it also depends on the climate. If you're in Arizona, you might have to stay ahead of it before then, because if it gets to 64, now you're behind the curve here and it's going to take you a lot longer. It also depends on how full the box is. If you're fully packed out with cigars in that box, you want to stay on top of it.
You don't want to let it get down to 64.
You might not want to, because it's a lot harder to get back when you have and it also depends on how long you've been doing it, right? If you've only kept these cigars in there for a couple of weeks, it's going to be harder to maintain. But when you get it going, like mine is, I'm using the military now. I just switched from the Octador, and it's probably been, I don't know, 5 or 6 months I've been using it. And it's really stable at that point, right? You don't really have to do much. It's like, okay, I don't even know how often I add it. Even in the winter, it's like maybe once a month, maybe once every month and a half, something like that. It's like, okay.
Yeah. Brian told me he's got the military humidor, and he told me it's like 6 weeks.
Yeah. It's a long time. And it's like, it's also very stable. So you add it and it pretty much goes up 2 or 3%, 4%, whatever. And it's good. And it lasts another 6 weeks. There's not huge swings going on. It's pretty simple. But if you have a smaller one, it's going to be bigger swings, because you have less cigars, less airspace. You open it and all the air goes out and new air comes in. It takes longer to get back up to where it was. And so,
how long do you hold open the door to get a cigar? I mean, are you in there shopping, or are you I know what I'm going to smoke, bam, I get it and I get out?
I don't care. I literally don't think about that. I leave it open as long as I want. If it don't care. Matter of fact, one time I went and I left it open all night. I was so pissed. Oh. I forgot. I don't know. I was doing something. I got left. I was like, oh no. So I shut it. Everything's fine.
Yeah, I don't know if it makes any difference, but when people come over, I don't get them cigars. I just tell them help themselves, pick whatever they want. You're welcome to it. And I see them over there holding the door open for 5 minutes, and I'm like, all right, we'll make a decision.
No, I try not to worry about stuff. It's typically not an issue. And in fact, I look at it almost as a good thing, because you're doing that exchange of air. You're probably doing some rotation. It's good for the cigars to get moved around.
When people come over and dig through my cigars, they're doing lots of rotation,
I'm surprised you're not super anal. These are my friend's smokes. These are my long-term.
No. I tell people if it's in there, you can smoke it. If I've got it put up, then you don't see it. But anything that's in the humidor that I normally smoke, you're welcome to take whatever you want.
I like it. Yeah.
But hey, man, tell us anything that you guys got coming up that we should be looking for.
We have got a ton of new models on tap this year, and I think they're going to be from. We've kind of gone after a lot of different design. We've got this one that looks like a Japanese style design where you can't tell where the lid and the drawer are. It's called the Kobe. We've got another one that's like a brown leather with gold on it. We've got another one that's black, like a matte black with some gold finishes. Just some really interesting designs that are going to come out that are going to be just really beautiful, and that good mix between modern and classic that's going to fit kind of every kind of decor. And the other thing we're doing is we're going to be launching some less expensive models. One that's like the Canador. It's like the glass jar, like real glass, not plexi like you see on Amazon for $12. Real glass. It's got this hydraulic lid with our digital hygrometer in it. It's got a system inside of it that you use a dropper to keep it maintained. Really cool thing. Great.
How many will that
keep on your counter?
How many jar hold?
It's 20. Yeah, it'll hold 20.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a decent amount. and it's really cool. I mean, it's like it's like one of those things where you could take it to the bar, you could take it wherever. It's kind of portable-ish, and you just, here you go, you pull it out, you can grab some cigars. It's kind of different. There's nothing that's really been on the market before, and we'll see how it goes. They're spending a ton of money on molds and stuff to get this thing out, so we'll see how it goes. But I'm pretty excited about it. And then on top of that, where we're launching, we've kind of had this humidor at the bottom of our line that's like $30. That was like the first, kind of iteration of humidor we came out with. That has a little jar in it with crystal gels and stuff. The cedar in it is not great. It's not something we're like super proud of. It's just kind of an entry level humidor. So we're phasing that out, and we're getting into something we could be proud of. So sort of a lower end, but stores, I don't know, 20 cigars, call it. And it has a smaller like humidification system in it, the normal type of cedar that you would expect from us, right? A lot of cedar in the box. It's got a glass top on it, really some cool designs with it. But instead of being $30, it's probably going to be in that like $60, $70 price point, to where it's like, hey,
a nice quality humidor for under $100.
Exactly. It's like, hey, if you need something that's just a basic, my buddy got me a few cigars. I'll probably smoke 5 cigars a year or something. This is a perfect sort of box for that guy. Or bachelor party gifts. I know a lot of times that's a big thing. You want to get your buddy some cigars, and you don't really want to spend a ton of money on a humidor. Maybe they already got one or whatever. So it's kind of a nice thing there. So we're working on all of that. And then what we just launched, if you'll allow me to pitch it, is the Claro cigars. We've been looking at for probably 2 years now, the cigar subscriptions that are on the market.
Right.
And we've been really studying what they've been doing, and similar to how we did humidors. And we just wanted to make a better cigar subscription. And a lot of our customers, maybe the same, a lot of overlap in your audience, maybe some not overlap, but they're new cigar smokers. So they haven't necessarily tried all the big brands. They don't really know what they like or what they don't like. They don't know if they like bold, mild, medium, whatever. They're still trying to figure that out. And so what we wanted to do is create a cigar subscription that provides cigars that they're not just bulk cigars that we could buy on a discount and then throw them in a 3 to 5 pack, but they're major brands. They're really, really good stuff. I mean, the average retail, I don't even know what the average retail is, but the average wholesale on the cigars that we're selling is like in the $8 to $10 range, wholesale. So, you can see that it's some nice stuff, right? These are not cheap sticks. And we sort of go through a cigar journey, right? So you sort of subscribe, and we take you through this tasting journey, and we're trying to expose you to more brands and more palettes. We include 2, if you do the 4 packs, it's like 2 boutique brands. And these are, again, not just your cheapest boutique brands. These are good boutique brands, of the bigger boutiques, and 2 like sort of legacy brands that you've heard of before, 90+ rated cigars, that sort of thing. And so we're really trying to figure out that. And we launched it in November. It's going really, really well. And we're really looking for feedback. So if you would, if you listen to this, go to the website. If you're not seeing, if it doesn't make you want to buy, tell us why. And we're looking for that. I think one of the things that we're looking to do that's different, that we're working on right now, is the ability for you to choose which months you subscribe. So imagine you want to buy our subscription, but you're like, you know what? I'm really like a summer smoker, right? So you just, boom, you pick the summer months, and we send you cigars in the summer, and then we don't talk to you again for a year, and we send you cigars next summer.
Schedule.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, and also, I mean, there's guys out there that maybe smoke 1 to 2 cigars a month. They only want to subscribe every other month.
Exactly. Yeah. No. So we're going to allow you ultimate flexibility. You pick the months that you want. If you only want 1 month a year, we can set that up. So that's just something that we're working on, because we feel like there's some demand for that as well. And of course, you get a lighter and a cutter when you subscribe. And we're doing a podcast as well. Actually, you sort of convinced us to do that, so I appreciate that. Our podcast.
I tell people from the very beginning, if you have a business, you should be doing a podcast to tell people about what it is that you do.
Yeah, we launched it last year. It's called Fat Ash podcast, and me and Ian, it's kind of a funny take on cigar reviews, if you will. We're not aficionados by any means. In fact, with the Claro Cigars business, we actually hired an aficionado to help us pick the cigars.
We don't even do cigar reviews.
Yeah,
We give you a thumbs up or a thumbs down, but I mean, I'm not the guy to tell you that you're gonna taste, peanut butter and jelly in this cigar or whatever. That's just not me.
I don't think most people are, and that's why I think it's funny, because if you listen to some of these guys, the professional reviewers, it's like we read. So on the podcast, we read the professional review, and then we try to like taste what they're saying, and it's like macadamia nut, or they said French peanuts in one of them or something. And we're like, what the hell's French peanuts taste like? I don't even know.
Yeah, I mean, I think I read one where it was like toasted almonds, but just toasted on one side.
yeah. So we have a little bit of a funny take on that, and then we go through like of course we talk about humidors. I mean, that's the other thing, is if you want to learn more, and even if you don't want to listen to us do stupid funny stuff, if you just go to the episode that has the humidor that you want to buy on the picture, it's in the first like few minutes that we talk about that humidor, so you can kind of get an inside take on what it's about.
Now, one question about your podcast: are you guys drinking while you're doing the show?
We are. So we have a funny thing where one of us will pair it, and we kind of try to do some unconventional pairings. We try to stay away a little bit from the typical pairing. So I think we did like a pina coladas in one, and
what did y'all pair that with? Like, I would have no idea, because I don't drink mixed drinks, but what would you pair a pina colada with?
I forget which cigar that we even smoked with it now, and I think it's just more of like it's probably a little bit of a reality.
It kind of sounds like fun. Like,
it's a black.
I would never in a million years drink a pina colada, but I might do it on the show to pair with a cigar. That's a great idea. I'm going to steal that from you.
It's good. It was really good. I was like, I want some more pina colada. Have you never had a pina colada?
I've had one, but I want to say I was probably 30 something years ago.
Yeah, it was good. And Ian brought Drambuie on. I don't know if you know what Drambuie is. It's like it's like a cognac or something. It's really, really interesting.
I actually tried cognac for the first time like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Hated it. Oh, it was disgusting.
Yeah, Drambuie is pretty good. It was good, but it's like, sometimes you get into these drinks, they overpower the cigar. So it's kind of like, I probably wouldn't do that again, just because you overpower the cigar. And it's the same way, like you smoke an Opus and you're trying to smoke, even just some scotch or whiskey with an Opus, like that's a lot. That's going to knock you down.
Well, you got to just practice more. The more
it's true. We smoked the last episode. I think we smoked this limited edition Alec Bradley. It came out of a dynamite case. It's called like the Black Diamond. It's really cool. I've seen that one. It's a cool box. It looks like a dynamite case. And then it's a rare limited edition cigar. And oh my God, it was huge. It was really big. And it was so dark. It was the definite darkest cigar I ever smoked. And I was just like, it was so strong. I could barely take it.
Was the cigar good, or was it just like,
I think we rated it like a 6 out of 10. Which is not that good. But the experience was really cool, because like you took it out of a dynamite case, and the shape was different. I don't even know. It was like a diamond shape. It wasn't a box shape.
It was one of the trios. There's like a trio cigar collection that Alec Bradley does, and the boxes like all fit together to make one box.
Interesting. I don't know about that. This was a yellow box that it was literally a case of dynamite, and you opened it up, but it was a black diamond, I think is what it was, and it was shaped like a diamond.
Yeah. That's not the one I'm talking about. The one I'm talking about, it's like 3 different blends, but they come in a triangular box, and each blend takes up, a third of the triangle. You're talking about the black market Esteli Diamond, which
Maybe.
it looks like a dynamite box. I just pulled it up on Google.
Oh, there you go.
Cigars are actually like box pressed into a diamond.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we thought it'd be a cool cigar to talk about, and it was, but it was just like, whoa,
It was a 10 on the power scale.
It really was, and it was too much for me. I was like, I don't know that I'm going to be able to. It was hard to even finish.
Wow.
And it was so big. It was huge.
Yeah, I think it's like I can't see. It's 6 1/4 by 54, so it's a big thick stick.
Yeah,
and I'm not a big. I'm not real big into full blown nicotine bombs or just that overpowering cigar anymore. I used to when I was, getting started. I thought that's what made a good cigar. If it kicked your ass, that was a good cigar. And now I'm like way more in like the light mediums to the mediums to the medium pluses. That's really, I like to enjoy the flavors of the cigar, not feeling like I'm gonna have cold sweats.
Yeah, I remember talking to one of the smaller brand at the show, and they were saying it was a Connecticut, and they're like, if you smoke this, you're gonna turn green. And I was like, what?
That's not a selling point.
Well, and then they told me that Cigar Club bought 10,000 of them, and I was like, oh God. They're going to be sending this out to all these new cigar smokers, and they're going to hate cigar smoking.
Right. It was like last week I was at the shop, and I promise you at the Leaf, there was like 20 customers at one time in the humidor. And one of them had been smoking an acid. I don't know if it was a blondie or a deep dish, but it was a sweet cigar. And I heard him saying that he wanted to, take the next step. And so I said, hey, here's a couple of cigars. I recommended the La Galera Connecticut, the New World Connecticut, and the Tabanero Connecticut, which are all great cigars.
Mm-hmm.
And he went and bought a Last Right from the Black Label Trading Company, which is an absolute powerhouse cigar. And I was just like, hey, man, knock yourself out, buddy.
No.
So
that's funny.
That's awesome, man. I love what you guys are doing. We're going to actually do a pina colada coming up soon. I don't know what we'll pair it with, but I'm going to find something. I haven't had one of those, but I'll tell you something you should pair on your show.
All right.
Find yourself some Old Granddad 114.
Okay.
So we did Old Granddad 114 about 2.5 weeks ago. We started the show at 3 and I passed out at 6. So it's 114 proof.
Oh,
and it drinks like it's about 100 proof. It doesn't seem like it's that strong, but I tell you, it will get a bite on you.
That's funny.
So you might not really want to try it. I've got another bottle up on the shelf. But
yeah, are you a peanut butter whiskey guy?
No, I'm not. I like just bourbon. I like it neat. I don't want any ice. I don't want any water. I like just the complexities that you get from bourbon.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair though, when you start getting up into the higher proofs, last night on the show or on the Light 'em Up Crew show, we were drinking the Old Forester single barrel, and it was amazing, but it's 127.7 proof. So it's not for the beginners, I promise you.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm don't drink enough to, I think if I had a podcast and I start drinking that, it's going to get like a wild podcast. We're going to have to scrap the episode. Yeah.
Well, ours always gets wild. We just never scrap the episode.
Hey, maybe that's the ones they want to see.
Yeah. So we have a good time. We don't take ourselves serious. You guys have real information that people can learn stuff. We want you to feel like you're hanging out at the lounge with two crazy guys. And I think that's pretty much why people listen.
That's awesome.
So as long as we're all having fun, and
Yeah.
sharing experiences, and hey, but also before you go, I want to say thank you for donating the military footlocker humidor to the streamathon. We have it up for auction. It's already at, last time I checked, $150, and we still have 2 weeks of bidding. And
Nice.
so we just want to say thank you for donating that. And you're going to actually be one of our guests during the streamathon. You're going to pop on, say hello, and tell people, hey, this is for the troops. You should be donating. You should be auction. There's some cigar packs on the auction site. I promise you, if you went and bought the cigars, you're talking about $300-400.
Wow.
And right now, one of them is like at 150 and the other one's at like 50. And I'm like, whoever gets these packs, these are limited edition cigars that you can't find. The guy that I told you that has all the tubs, he put together like a 40 cigar sampler of like the top echelon cigars. Another guy from our Light 'em Up crew donated another pack, and it's all like the limited editions that you can't get from Steve Saka. And it's like, wow. And that's what it's all about, coming together to support the troops. And I was talking to
Am I allowed to bid
yeah,
on these?
yeah.
All right.
And I was talking to Storm Bowen earlier, and he's the head of Cigars for Warriors. And I told him, I said, I don't know if you talked to Storm much, but it's really hard to shut him up. And I was like, all right, man, I got an interview to do with Michael from Case Elegance. And he's like, oh, those are good people. They always take care of us. So I wanted to say thank you, because if Storm says you always take care of him, I know he's not BSing.
Yeah, no, we spend a lot of time with those guys at the they're at the trade shows, and so we spend a lot of time with those guys, and we always try to donate all of our stuff after the trade show. And then if you buy a military humidor, a portion of that actually goes to them.
Oh, I didn't know that. I did not know that. That's awesome.
Yeah, so we donate. We send them a check every year, and yeah, they're a great. Or you're the one who put that together. You turned me on to that organization and kind of turned me away from the Wounded Warrior Project, which had some,
don't mention their name.
Well, that's who we had before, and I don't know anything about them other than of course, they're a big charity, and
they got a great name. They got a great name.
And so, but I did some research after you kind of turned me on to what was going on there, and it's who knows what's going on. But anytime you have a charity and there's any kind of drama, you're like, okay, well, I'll just pick another charity. It's like,
right, and then and I'm sure you're aware, but the thing I love about Cigars for Warriors, they're 100% for the troops. Not a single person in the entire organization takes a dime.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just passion.
It's all volunteers, and you can tell they really are trying to do some good stuff, and they're all really good guys. I mean, you can't really go wrong there. So it's a good charity, and it's hard to find a good charity. I tell you, because we do every product we sell, we donate money to charities, and so it's like we're constantly looking to what's charities, and it's really hard.
I know a great one that you should look into. It's called the Rob Jones Retirement Fund.
Yeah, I got a couple kids. That have that same charity going on.
They're ahead of me on that front. Yeah. Fortunately, I've got 2 kids, and they're both draining that fund.
Yeah, well, can't take it with you.
Right. Hey, well, Michael, thank you so much for coming on the show. And I appreciate the fact that whenever I came up with this idea to cut up a humidor, there was no resistance on your part. You're like, yeah, let's do that. Let's see what happens.
I knew what was going to happen, and I knew it was going to be a winner for us. So I said, well, that's a good idea. We should have been doing that ourselves. So I appreciate that. And anything you can give us content wise on that, it'd be appreciated.
Oh yeah. I'll shoot you the whole video. And in fact, I didn't show it to you. I didn't show you the video, and it was way much. I showed you the 2 boxes.
Yep.
Or what's left of them. And I didn't show you the video. I'll pull that up right quick, and I'll show you just a little quick sample of what it was. And it's like, I was surprised, and I wasn't surprised that you guys had the quality, I was really surprised at how there was no quality in the other box.
Yeah.
I mean, none.
Yeah, it's there, but you just got to really work to see it. It's like paper thin.
Well,
You just wonder if it does anything at all. You're like, I don't really.
I think you're giving them a lot of leeway when you say they have some quality, because I didn't see that at all.
Yeah, no, it's bad. And I don't know how it works. I mean, I think that's what you see over time is you see their reviews start to come down. They initially will seed it with their friends and family and whatever people review, but then over time, they're, true customers, people that try to store stuff in there, and it just doesn't work.
Right. Okay. Oh, I got it right here. I'm going to show you on the screen here for you guys that might want to see it close up. You might be able to see it a little bit better here, but here's, that is the Case Elegance box. You can see that is cedar, right? I don't know if, can you see my cursor?
Yep.
Okay. So that is actual cedar, but then when you go back and look at the first box, like, where's the cedar?
Nothing.
I mean, there's no cedar there. I can.
Yeah. Nothing.
I mean, literally, and you can see it looks like before you cut it open, it looks like the bottom is cedar. That's just MFD with like hair thin paper laid across of it that looks like cedar.
Yeah. They're trying to fool you to make you think that thick wall there is cedar, and in fact, it's
and there's laminate on the top part of the box. So, like right here where my cursor is, there's laminate all the way across. So when you open it, it looks like that whole MFD is actually cedar.
Yep.
So I mean, I was shocked, and then I mean, look at the difference. And, my cut is probably not as clean as what you would have liked to have seen, but we're talking about a handheld battery operated skill saw. But I mean, look at the difference right there, all the way across, top, sides, back. It was very impressive.
5mm combing. Yeah.
I didn't know how big it was, but I knew it was, in comparison, it was like they have none. And now, there we go. Anyway, I want to just say thanks for, not saying, we probably would have cut one in half even if you didn't let us, but that's just how we are. The week before we cut a cigar open, and I talked to a company and they said, yeah, go ahead. And then I forgot to get one of their cigars before the show. So I had a Tabanero handy, which Tabanero is one of our sponsors. And I was like, well, we'll just cut this one in half. And then so I told Yanko after the show, I was like, hey, we cut one of your cigars in half. And he was like, oh, that's cool. So, and I say, guys who make quality, they don't care if you look on the inside.
Yeah.
Look under the hood. We're good.
It's true. I bet the guy, whoever made that box, I bet they don't even know what they're doing. Like, I literally bet they don't even really understand that it's paper thin, that they think it's great. They're just, a lot of these guys, especially on Amazon, they'll buy something and they'll send it over to a different manufacturer. They'll say, copy this, change this. And then, but they don't really understand and care about the market. And so I think that's really how you win here is you care about what you're doing and you're into it and you love it, and then you win.
Well, and I think what I'm going to give you some advice here, Michael, for your podcast, you should actually have a couple of your humidors, take it to a wood shop and have them use a bandsaw and make a nice, pretty cut. So you can show, my cut was not desirable. I'll say that, but anybody that knows me knows I'm not a woodworking guy. Like that's, my hands are made for cigars. So anyway, you should have a couple of those on your show because it's a great talking point. And I mean,
I want you to I'm going to send you a label. You box it up. You tell me the dimensions and the way of the box. I'm going to send you a label. I want you to send me those because I'm going to use it.
Absolutely.
I'm going to use it.
You could probably even still take what I got and have it cut cleaner.
Yeah, I'm gonna, even if it's not, I don't think it has to be 100% clean. I mean, what you showed me there looked pretty good. You could really tell what's going on, and I think
Yeah,
that's really
that was what was eye opening. And I mean, I did it right out in the backyard. I was standing up. I put them on top of a trash can and cut them in half. And while I did that, everybody else backed off like 30 feet. Right. They're like, he's been drinking already. So, well, hey, Michael, thanks for taking the time to hang out with us and give us some education on humidification. And we just thank you for all you guys do for the cigar community, the Cigars for Warriors. We appreciate your sponsorship of Cigar Talk. We've been together now for, like 15, 16 months,
It's been
and
great.
appreciate the relationship that we've built with you guys.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it.